Hey guys, thank you for joining my show as we check out Hagrid. Now I received this Hagrid from Facebook Marketplace on a random doom scroll, and I came across him for $10, which I think is a steal considering he's roughly about $40 on the internet. So we're getting a good look at around his head, his hairline, little buzz cut in the back, show off the Mattel stamp. Coming around to check under his beard, which is a hard plastic and is pretty well put on, but not in a condition to take off, and trying to give him actual hair beard. His nice round belly that I am gonna try and show you a bit here before we take off his clothes completely. Round. So, yeah. Now, one of my concerns when I first picked him up was how big his feet were. I mean, really big compared to Ken. But thankfully, to my surprise, it was just the shoe. As you can see here, the size difference. So, those will be gone as he joins my Barbie family. So, he has standard movement in his legs to where they can bend, not like made to move, but definitely not like a stiff bodied Ken. We're gonna take his shirt off. It wasn't the easiest, but if I had to cut it off, I definitely would have. And now that his shirt is off, you can really see his roundness. I was so happy to have found such a different body type for my Ken, but as you can see, Ken's clothes won't fit this guy properly. Mattel label. But hey, that's the whole point of the video. Now let's make Hagrid some clothes. Now I did have a video where I showed how I made the pattern for his clothes. I don't know what happened to it or where it went, but I essentially traced his shirt and his pants to get the pattern in order to cut out the forms to create these 4 items brought to you here today. Now we're going to start with a button-up shirt, but I say button-up loosely as I do not have buttons. I have his collar, front of the shirt, sleeves, back of the shirts. Now, the first couple of cuts I made, I just did extra for a button-up, but after I made a few shirts, I made a pattern to cut off the excess fabric so I wouldn't have to deal with it as much. Now I am going to take one of the back pieces. I had 2 of the front and 2 of the back. One of the front pieces, and we're going to take the right side in. We're going to pin, and then we're going to sew along the shoulder piece to connect the front and the back pieces, as you see here. Now we are going to go ahead and sew his collar, and we're going to take, once again, the right side fabric facing in. I'm just going to do 1 pin, and then I'm going to sew all the way around except leaving the center piece so that we're able to flip inside out, as you can see here. Now to get those corners, I did use my scissors, as you know, my pinky's small, but it's not that small. And then I take the second part of the back and I cut a bit of a loop so that way the inside where the color is attached, there is a bit of fabric and it does sit cleaner to the eye. So we take our shirt that we already sewed the front and back together, and we take the other pieces of the front and we line them up, and I just make 1 pin in the middle of it, as I'm going to need to move it around a bit as I attach the collar. So we take the collar, I press it in half so that way I can get a good middle seam, attach it to the back, and then I take that piece I cut from the second part of the back, and I started to pin, lining them up as best as I can, and as many pins as you need to keep those pieces centered. Now you're going to want to take your collar and go in between the two front shirt pieces, so that when you flip it, it does sit the right side, not inside of the shirt, tucked in between the two slants. Once you get one side together, you go ahead and sew the other side. You're going to want to sew from one side all the way at the bottom, up to the collar, down and around to the other side of the bottom, but you're not going to want to sew up on the sides, just the front, the bottom, and the collar. Now you see me here cutting off the excess fabric from the seam allowance, and then also cutting the corners, so that way whenever I flip the shirt right side out, the corners can remain a bit more sharp. Now as I flip the shirt in, I can see where I didn't place the collar correctly, I missed the corner, and I'm just going to go back and sew that into place. Now that it's sewn back into place, I go ahead and fully flip the shirt inside out, right side out. Next are the sleeves. I go ahead and take the little piece of extra fabric I have, and I cut off two exact same size rectangular pieces, and they are going to be sewn onto the bottom of the shirt to make the piece that would normally have a button. I don't know what that's called. I press them to hold it in place so that I don't have to pin as much, and I do the open side facing the bottom of the sleeve where the hand would go, and I do pin one in place. And you're going to sew on the open inside. I go ahead and set the second sleeve up, so it's just one right after the other. Once those pieces are sewn, I go ahead and press them so that way they are held in place. You go ahead and press and hold the bottom of the shirt, and I go ahead and sew that in place. And then I take the sleeve, I fold it in half, iron it, so that way I got a nice center. And then you're going to want to pin those together, right side facing each other on the inside, and curve and pin as needed to hold in place. So right along the line. Fold it in to make sure I didn't miss a spot, and then I go ahead and do the other side. And then once both of your sleeves are sewn into place, you're going to flip the shirt inside out, and you're going to line up the end of the sleeve, pin it together, and then you're going to line up the side of the shirt, and then pin that together. And then you're going to sew all the way down. I did miss a spot there, so I went back to fix that, but then once I flip it inside out, you'll see where I cut off the excess that was showing. Go ahead and do the other side now. Once that is sewed, once again, cutting off that excess fabric. I line up the sleeve ends to make sure that they have this almost the same size hole for the hand, and once those are good, I go ahead and flip the shirt inside out, right side out. And now at this point, we're going to go ahead and put the shirt on Hagrid to make sure that we have the right measurements of him, to make sure whenever I fold it over to add on the Velcro, it's not going to be too tight and it's not going to be too loose. It looks like it's going to be a great fit. So I go ahead and take it off, and I go ahead and iron those little slits down so I won't have to pin it as much. And then from there, we're going to figure out what length of Velcro that we want to use to help keep the shirt in place while Hagrid is wearing it. We have kind of a medium one, and then we have a long one, but I think I like the medium one better, so we're going to go with that. You're going to separate them, and you're going to want to have one on the facing outwards and one facing inwards. Now that's all sewn together. We are going to go ahead and try this on Hagrid to make sure it fits how we're wanting it to. And now seeing it on Hagrid all the way around, I'm thinking I want to add a pocket. So you guys get to see how I would add a pocket to the shirt. Once again, I take my excess fabric and I will cut out a square. I'll take the two furthest ends, fold them in, iron them down, take the top, fold it down, and then I'm going to take the bottom corners and I'm going to cut them off, and then I fold it in half to ensure that those are at the same angles, and then I'll cut a slit in the middle so that way it's easier to fold them up to give that nice triangle bottom. Iron that down and then pin it to the shirt. Sewing one way and then sewing back so that way the pocket won't come off. And that's how I would make a button-up shirt for Hagrid. No, I don't have buttons, but I am pleased with how the pattern lined up for the shirt. Thank you for watching part 1 of Hagrid Gets a New Wardrobe. Please like and subscribe and follow for more videos.